Welcome to the Spirit Sessions podcast. I'm your guide, Katie Silcox, bringing you your weekly self-love soundbite. Join us, where I'll help you find your true spiritual home, where every single aspect of you is holy ground, holy ground, holy ground, holy ground.
This is Spirit Session Podcast with Katie Silcox. Venga chicos, empezamos.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hi everyone, Katie here. This podcast is intended to inspire you, educate you, and most importantly, support you on your journey towards knowing who you really are, that inner self, that inner teacher. I am not a psychologist or a medical doctor and do not offer professional health or medical advice on this podcast. If you are suffering from any kind of psychological or medical issue, please do the right thing and seek help from your qualified health professional. Hey everybody, welcome back to Spirit Sessions. We are here with, as usual, we always have great guests and I get super excited every time, but today we have a truly special guest because we are with one of my Ayurveda mentors, one of my former professors of Ayurveda. We have the beautiful, the Rasalicious Sandhiya Ramaswamy with us today. Sandhiya is not only one of my soul sisters, she is also a clinical Ayurvedic specialist, a master educator, a wonderful chef. She is one of the lead teachers in Shakti School, both level 1 and level 2. Her expertise is in Ayurveda in general, but also she specializes in workshops, cooking classes, consultations, and spiritual retreats. She also, in a former life, like me, had a whole different life, a whole different career in the corporate sector. And we welcome you so much, Sandhiya. Welcome to Spirit Sessions.
Lovely to be here, Katie. So lovely. Thank you. Thank you for that beautiful intro.
Well, before we dive into Sandhiya, I have to tell you, Sandhiya Ramaswamy is such a stickler for the details in Ayurveda that one day I was like, I don't think I'm going to make it through school. And Sandhiya was like, you will do this. You will do this. You can get this. And you pushed me to my edge, to my limits, like a good teacher does. And I am so glad that I listened because Ayurveda became such a huge part of my life. And Sandhiya, welcome. I think it would be fun to just give our listeners that are totally new to you just a short, tiny background on how you went from the corporate into really your lineage. You're Indian.
Yeah, getting back to my roots, right? If I can encapsulate it in one word, pneumonia, hospitalization with pneumonia, serious pneumonia, wake-up call, burnt out with 60-hour work weeks, climbing the corporate ladder. And like you mentioned, Katie, 15 years in the world of finance with like big companies, where it was all about the bottom line. And I pretty much had, run myself to the ground. And it wasn't the first time. I was diagnosed with asthma when I was 1 or 2 years old. So asthma had been like my buddy all along. And I used to miss school. And once I got into the corporate lifestyle and the diet, or rather the corporate way of life and the diet and lifestyle, that goes with it, right? That doesn't serve us. I was going to the urgent care emergency room, without a thought, right? Like without having that mindful connection. Oh my God, this is my body. Maybe there's something I'm doing that's causing this, right? So that hospitalization was so serious that it was such a wake-up call. I was like, wow, I have given possession of the most important gift, treasure that I have in my life, which is my health, to the Western medical system. And God bless them. We need them. Emergency care, critical care. But all they can give me is more symptomatic relief by way of another steroid or another antibiotic or another inhaler. And so that's when I decided I need to take charge of my health, reconnected with the roots that I grew up with, like you said, in India, my grandmother and my mother's medicine, if you will, folk medicine of South India. And I picked up this beautiful book by Maya Tiwari, Life of Balance. And the rest, as they say, is history. I wanted to know more. I worked with an Ayurveda practitioner. My health was changing on all levels. Enrolled in the California College of Ayurveda in 2008. And yeah, here I am. How many years later? Wow. And I left my cushy day job. So to answer your question, right? So I never thought I was going to leave my controller position I was working for Heinz at that time. I never thought I was going to leave my cushy day job. I just wanted to learn, just get deep into it so I can help myself and friends and family. But once I started my internship and saw how practical, easy to implement, customized recommendations were making such a big difference, not just in the health of my client, but it's like Ayurveda's community medicine, right? You can't help but touch other people in your lives. They're asking, hey, you seem to have more energy. Your skin is glowing. What are you doing, right? So when I saw how these shifts were causing like a health revolution, it was very clear to me that this is what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So
I think that's such a powerful story, especially for those of our listeners that might be from your background, Sandhiya, because I remember when I was in India back in like early 2000s, I remember sitting in the airport and these, I guess they were in their 50s or 60s, Indian women were asking me what I was doing in India. And I said, studying Ayurveda. And they were like, oh, our young people don't want to study that anymore. It's amazing. Look at you, like little white girl with blonde hair coming over here to learn our medicine. And I think what I observed, especially in Indian Americans, is that there's almost a way that those that go to the university class have this idea that Western is better, or that scientific model is better, and strive to even turn away from some of these traditions. And how powerful that you were able to actually turn back to your mother root. And I mean, our mother medicine is the most powerful medicine, and to really find that. And do you see that? I just think of all the like young Indian people in the universities now studying to be doctors and lawyers and computer programmers, and like, have they lost Ayurveda, or do you think because Ayurveda is becoming more popular, they'll re-embrace it?
That's a great question. And by the way, I'm very grateful for my corporate experiences, because I can meet my clients where they are, and the kind of clientele I attract are people who have been in my shoes, are continuing to be in my shoes. And I've kind of been there, done that. So I like to say I was not born with an Ayurveda spoon in my mouth. I know how to approach Ayurveda when you work 50 hours a week and you have a family to take care of.
Which is actually similar to Maya Tawari's story, very similar.
Right, exactly. That's why I resonated with her and her story in her book, and so much, right? So absolutely, I myself fell into that trap. I came to be trained as a chef. My background is in the culinary arts, and I had parents, and I have parents. My parents I just WhatsApped with them this morning. My parents supported me, even though I come from a family of doctors and lawyers and engineers. Somehow I told myself the story, wait a minute. I come from a family, and my culture says education is everything. So I took the GMAT, and I kind of veered away, you see, from my passion, which was, cooking, the culinary arts. And so sometimes it is because of certain cultural implications, right? Like, education. But I must say that Ayurveda, the effect of also colonization, because Ayurveda was the medicine of the day, because of colonization, Ayurveda kind of was, went to the background, because it was initially deemed as quack medicine, if you will, right? When Western medicine was just coming into the forefront. So I think part of it is that I see a resurgence of Ayurveda. I like to tell, West borrows from East, and then East borrows from West, right? We have this beautiful synergy, this beautiful dance, right? So because of yoga and Ayurveda becoming so popular in the West, it is reigniting in India. Case in point, you went to an Ayurveda school in India, right? So every time I go back, I see more Ayurveda schools. I see more programs on TV where they're talking about, especially now we have so much of the companies that see India as a big market. So marketing Coca-Cola and Frito-Lays and all that stuff, which we didn't grow up with. I didn't grow up
But the problem with that is that you will import the American diseases, and then you'll need Ayurveda even more.
Exactly. So, but I see there are doctors or Vaidyas or practitioners or Ayurveda nutritionists who come on these TV programs who say, hey, we need to get back to the basics of what we grew up with, having the hand-pound brown rice, having the plants that grow in your backyard, which are deemed as weeds, but they're actually medicinal, So I see there's a shift. I mean, there is still amazing Ayurveda doctors in India. It's a different path of becoming an Ayurveda doctor. And every time I go, I try to connect with them. I take my mom to see them. So yeah, I think it's alive and well. And I think it's having a resurgence.
Yeah.
It has started having a resurgence, I would say 10, 15 years ago when it became so popular in the West. So
Beautiful. So, you teach a lot of things in Shakti school theoretically, but your most popular classes for us are your cooking classes. And one of the central premises of Ayurveda is that food is the primary medicine. And I remember reading, if food is improper, the medicine will be of no use. And if you have the right food, the medicine will be of no need. Right. And I know for me, it's like, and yet paradox is also operating. So I use certain supplements and herbs, and I've found them to be really helpful in working with specific conditions. But if I don't work with the food and I don't cook for myself, nothing works. And so maybe let's go into we kind of think of I think there's still this vestige in our culture of seeing the kitchen and women in the kitchen as anti-feminist or some sort of demeaning version of what it means to be a woman. And where I feel the most alive and well is when I'm at my home and I am cooking in my kitchen. So maybe speak to your view of the role of food and the emotion of food in medicine in Ayurveda.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well said, by the way. So Ayurveda is rooted in sacredness. Right? Ayurveda is sacred medicine. Yoga is sacred medicine. All of these comes from the Vedas. So everything is viewed as sacred, including this body temple. And this was not me, right? In the corporate world, being mindful, being present, you realize, wow, I'm nourishing this body temple, which houses my soul. And everything I take in through my 5 senses becomes me. And when we see, and Katie, like I was sharing with you before our talk, that I was traveling myself, and you said you were traveling quite a bit, and I was traveling the better part of the month. And yes, no access to kitchen. We were with some friends and family, but for the most part, eating out, right? And not having perhaps the best quality, high prana meals at regular times, right? Simply put, whatever we put into our body becomes us. So I have this lovely apple here. And this apple, if we digest it properly, if we eat it mindfully, becomes one of our 7 tissues that we are made up of, right? We're made up of 7 tissues, and whatever it remains, whatever a part of the food, the nourishment we've taken into our system remains, goes into, I like to say, the bank balance of ojas, right? So tissues meaning, rasa, rakta, what are we talking about? Plasma, lymph, our skin, our muscles, everything that makes the body temple, right? So food in Ayurveda affects us. The way we view food is not just from a physical standpoint, though. Ayurveda nourishment affects us on a physical level, on an emotional level, on a psychological level, and on a spiritual level, right? So when we bring that sacredness, it's known as sadhana. Sadhana means making every act sacred. And I'm talking, again, we're not aiming for perfection. There are days I just want to, open the bag of popcorn and put it in a bowl and eat it mindlessly. And that's okay. Watching some Netflix.
Watch Netflix. That's so fun.
Yes. Yes, right. So, but what we do 80 to 85% or 70 to 80% of the time, right? Are we more mindful? And, and I'm even being mindful of that popcorn. I'm like, okay, I'm binging popcorn, watching a great show, and I'm enjoying it. That's great. There needs to be no guilt, right? Food should be joyful. So when we bring that sacredness into the act of cooking, into the act of eating, this was a game changer for me. I used to multitask. I never used to sit and eat. And now it's a non-negotiable. Those 10 minutes, it's me and the food nourishing the body temple. It's made such a difference for me. So if we view food that way, I think it changes our perception of food, because, and like you were saying, there's still also such a stigma of like diet culture, right? Diets and, good carbs and fat is bad. And there's just all these rules around it. So if we want to eschew the rules and find the joy and find the same joy. I mean, there are days I can't cook. I cook only 2 to 3 times a week, so last week, I was preparing for Diwali and I stopped at a Mediterranean place to get a, lovely vegan bowl. My car was parked under a shady tree and I enjoyed it, mindfully, because it's annam. Annam is sacred nourishment.
Yeah, I'm feeling so inspired to return to the prayer. There's a reason why we bless the food in every single tradition across the planet. And it's not just that it changes your body's chemistry towards relaxation or the parasympathetic nervous system. Like that might be a side benefit, but that act of bowing your head and honoring that you are taking life, whether it be vegan or keto or whatever, like you're still taking life. That's not you. It's very erotic, actually. It's becoming you.
It's a fusion.
It's a fusion. It's immersion. And I also want to come into what you said before, Sandhiya, that this is such a struggle for me. And I made a sankalpa a few days ago to just watch my addictions. And I'm not like addicted to alcohol or drugs or porn or some of these really rough addictions, but these are like the more subtle addictions. And there's a phrase in Tantra that says, the more subtle, the more powerful, right? Like looking at Instagram or Fox News or New York Times. And I hate Fox News, but it's like, what are they saying over there? And what story are they spinning over here? And like, the drama, it's like there's an addiction. It's not to get information so I can be of service. There's a quality of that. And so when you said what we take in through the gateways of the 5 senses becomes us. And so I know you're on social media. We'll put your links up. Everyone should follow Sandhiya. But like, how do you navigate the current world we're living, where we are literally bombarded with sensory information? Because like I'm sure many of our listeners, I want to be awake and informed, but at the same time, I can feel it. I mean, that word influence, I don't want anyone influencing my consciousness. That's not who I choose, right? So how do you personally work with that? And what advice do you offer our listeners for working with that?
It's a very on-point question. It's become the norm, the zeitgeist of our everyday life. Social media and echo chambers. The beauty of Ayurveda is that it says nothing is good for everyone and something is good for someone. So for each one of us, we need to understand how much are we affected. It's like a Vata person drinking 1 cup of coffee versus a Pitta versus a Kapha person. Very different effects.
Exactly.
And Katie, I know you and I share that, like the Vata personality, I get very affected. I'm very sensitive to
very
sensitive. So this is where we must antidote. I've had these conversations with myself, by the way. Like George Floyd was a turning point for me. And I've always been a rabble-rouser, an iconoclast. Growing up in India, I would question every single thing. I must admit, I come from privilege. I would use my voice, and I continue to use my voice. but I had to have a conversation on how I was using my voice, how I was getting information, and separating the wheat from the chaff. That's very important. Separating wheat from the chaff and choosing to engage in using our vivek, our discernment, choosing to engage with those posts that call to us, and not kind of frittering our time and going all over the place. But even, again, what I'm talking about is, again, 80% of the time. 20% of the time, we'll all let loose. That's okay. I myself have spent like an hour, what they call doom scrolling or something like that, right? Yeah.
Hearing
So
you say doom scrolling.
Let's face it, we all are. So what has helped me? But I had to have a conversation with myself. And this was, at the time when there were the political and parties, there was just so many echo chambers. It's like, what I do is when I need to say something, this is what I realized something at that time. I should come from a place of health. If I am responding, calling out from a place that disturbs me, because everything in Ayurveda is about health and dis-ease. And what I love about Ayurveda is the sense of moderation and what's right for you, what's right for the person, right? So I take my time when I need to. I've always been a deep thinker. I like to think about things. I like to read. I will formulate a post in Word first, and then I reread it. How's the tone? Because I've always also seen myself, Katie, in speaking my truth, I've always seen myself as a bridge builder in as much as I can. That's my whole goal, because there's just no point in being in echo chambers. And I've been in enough corporate jobs where I've seen the detriments of groupthink. Yeah. And I've never been party to it.
And
right?
Tribalism takes many forms. I'm just turning
exactly. Right. So what helps is quiet time.
Yeah.
Prayer is such a medicine. Sometimes silence. Sometimes we don't need to speak up. Sometimes we can contemplate. We have to be authentically ours. And I know there's a lot of, what will people think, and I myself get into that rut, right? So being true to ourselves, that's number one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in as much as we can participate, we participate. There is, some of us are saying quiet prayers. We may not be posting on social media.
Exactly. Like the most powerful, impactful people in my life right now don't have social media accounts and are affecting me in my soul's evolution on a quantum exponential level. And I think there's this real need right now on the planet for people like us that can hold, and it's not easy. I mean, this is a prayer practice, right?
Contemplative prayer practice. Absolutely.
Like Thich Nhat Hanh saying, if the boat is drowning, like if one person can hold the energy of calm.
Yes.
And I don't always do that the best, right? So it is a practice. And I just want to share with the listeners, there was a situation in my life, it was probably a month or so ago, where, we've all been in that situation where someone does or says something that you don't like, or that you find ethically immoral even, right? And honestly, one of my teachers would say, everyone thinks they're right. Everyone does think that they're right. And so I did this practice where instead of reacting, I went outside and I just did my energy work, did my prayers, like, God, let me see the clarity in this situation. And it doesn't always happen. Sometimes you don't get a lot of answers, but Sandhiya, this day, I got such a clear psychic vision of what this person was going through. And I didn't come from my ego. I was given the perfect words to respond. And what could have been a negative situation, if I would have said what I was reactively wanting to say, turned into the medicine. And then we had this, I won't go into the details, but like this beyond wonderful outcome that may or may not have involved like this person going and helping other people. So like, it was such a game changer for me. And I'm not saying I mostly still am in my reactivity, but there are these days and these moments when I shouldn't say mostly, but the power of silence, the space of silence is so absent. And when I think about the definition of swastha, health,
That's
means to be situated in who you really
That's
are.
right.
Can you say more about this word, swastha, for those of you?
Established in
Tell
the
us.
self, in the divine self, centering our presence. Swa means self, as in Swadhisthana chakra as well, right? That's the, dwelling place of the goddess. That's our second chakra. So swastha, stha means established in that not egoic self, which we find ourselves most of the time. Our lives are governed by ego, right? So here, exhibit A. Like one of my mentors says, right? The ego is screaming in the hallways of the mind while the soul barely can get in a whisper. That's true.
I love that.
So swastha is being, imagine a word if each and every one of our actions came from that place of divine self. Because in that place of divine self, we recognize only divinity. There is no duality.
Yeah.
You see, every problem in this world is because of duality.
Exactly.
Whether it's me fighting with my partner or whether it's war on a macro level.
Yeah.
He did something to me. She said something that I did not like. Like you said, you possibly could have reacted because the situation.
And then you are in war.
Exactly, because you brought in that duality, because my ego is not going to fight with this ego. I'm not going to let them talk to me like that, right? So we get into this space of duality.
Yeah.
When that's coming from the ego. So, there's this beautiful quote of health in Ayurveda by Sushruta, right? The one who's established in self, with a capital S, swastha, who has balanced doshas, balanced agni, balanced dhatus, and proper elimination of malas, and whose mind, body, and senses are full of bliss, is called a healthy person.
We're all so unhealthy.
So, or I like to say, I tell my clients and my students, Ayurveda is a journey. There's no destination. So we're all on this caravan of Ayurveda.
Well,
and that's okay.
And then going back to the heart chakra of the community aspect of Ayurveda, we have this Western idea, I think, a lot of times of that insular individual, which is wonderful. Yes. That's like the cowboy spirit, and I have a lot of it. But the shadow of that is that we think that we're on a healing journey alone, and that every disease or imbalance that happens to us is our fault. Right. And we are also living in the yuga of imbalance. Like, even if you had perfect discipline, the air and the water and the food are not as healthy based on the collective ancestral decision makings and current decision making power. So there's a lot going on where I don't, I have to remind myself, like I recently went through this whole mold detox journey, which I'm going to share with listeners probably sometime next year.
Oh, okay.
And it was like, I thought something was terribly wrong with me. That was my fault, that I was doing something wrong. And then you find out, oh no, you have this specific gene that makes you more susceptible to not being able to detox this. But secondly, you're living in an environment that was created before you even moved into this home.
Right.
So it definitely is environmental and community. If all of the community is in anxiety and fear and polarization, that's going to affect the mental, emotional health of the group. And so just to say, if we can find some semblance of balance in this crazy world, like, we are really warriors.
And we are the ones who've been called to meet the moment. That's how I always view my life. We're the ones we've been waiting for. Yeah. And Katie, let's just remove the word discipline from our vocabulary.
well, but
it's fun.
Sandhiya is all about joy and fun, but discipline It is so challenging. Like I have to remember it's about being a disciple and a bhakti, but
Right.
discipline is definitely, I am very disciplined in some ways, and then other ways it's true. Like there's a lot of room for the joy.
I
And
hope I can get 1% of your discipline in my life.
I have a lot because I haven't been able to get away with as much as I see most people can. And, in some ways, but I think that 80-20 is a really good percentage.
Yes.
Or, I mean, even 10-90 or 75-25, like you can find what works for you.
Even like some of my clients who are starting out, I'm like 2 days out of 7, you're doing something 2 days out of 7. That's awesome. That's like kudos. 2 days at the Yanga, 1 day, 1 out of 7. Awesome, right? So I love the word ritual. I love the word
perspective. Like it's so easy to get Ayurveda guilt because you're learning all this new stuff and you're like, I'm not getting any of it right, but it's about you're getting some of the things right.
Exactly. And yeah, it's a journey and we have to be kind to ourselves. And, I was listening to a talk by Oprah yesterday. Self-love is not so much navel gazing as it is the capacity to love ourselves so that we may love others in equal measure. Right? So we owe it to ourselves. We can only give to others what we can give to ourselves.
So, you are one of the main teachers in the Shakti school, and I know you meet with a lot of people one-on-one.
Yes.
I'm super curious, and I think our listeners too, when you work with people one-on-one, in your experience, what do you see is the single most healing thing for them that produces change in their life and big outcomes in their health? I mean, you can give a practical and you can give a spiritual if you want.
Well, everything I do is never removed from the spiritual, Katie, as you know. So as I tell my students who are preparing to be practitioners, I tell them the best gift you can give your clients that's going to jumpstart the healing process and continue the healing process, in addition to everything that they are doing, in addition to us empowering them, is our presence. Presence, and it is not just as a practitioner in a practitioner-client relationship. This is presence right now as I'm conversing with you. This is being fully present in relationships. This is being fully present to what is going on as well. But time and time again, and I didn't even know this was happening until my clients were mirroring back to me the fact that just by my holding space for them, giving them an opportunity to share some of their deepest, most confidential parts of their lives, which they've never shared in some cases with anyone, they felt the sense of lightness. They felt the sense of shift happening within them. And of course, this is not my doing. It's the grace of God. But when 2 or more people come together and are present with each other, God is there, divinity is there, because when we are present, we are listening from our heart, not from our mind. More often than not, especially in intimate relationships, what happens, somebody says something and we're already thinking of a response to give to them. We're not truly practicing, what do they call, like active listening? So I must say presence. Practical level, it's digestion is the cornerstone of health and immunity.
Yeah, I agree.
With every client that walks into my door, that's what I'm working on optimizing, and then magic happens. So
I remember being in India and asking A.G. Mohan, maybe they know A.G. I said, I have this problem, that problem with my digestion. And he said, I noticed that you're talking a lot when you're eating. Close your mouth. Just try this, and I remember thinking, that's too simple. And I think with food, chewing to an even consistency, being present with the food, blessing the food, eating seasonal, local when you can, like those things seem so simple, not overfilling yourself is one of the hardest things for me to do. It's like, it is so easy to say, but stopping when you're about 3/4 full and then having a little bit of tea or water, like that's a game changer. If you can stop before you're super full. And we want the magic herbal supplement. We want the magic tantric meditation, but really, have we chewed our food in presence and not overfilled our belly? Like,
that's tantra. That's making love to the food right there.
oh my God, Sandhiya just blew my mind. Okay, we're going to put that on a card. So that's making love to your food. So the way you eat is going to be the way you make love.
Everything is tantra, right? Tantra is like, how are we weaving our lives from the time we wake up? Everything is a ritual. I book in my day with prayer and affirmation. Even I'm tired, like I'm like lying down and saying my affirmations. Doesn't matter. There are certain non-negotiables. It's like, I want my life to be a prayer, because life is easy when your life is a prayer, right? And everything is, looking at this beautiful, my sister-in-law gave me this beautiful peacock bowl, right? And I filled it with these tomatoes, and I've been gazing at them. I'm like, that's beautiful.
That's art.
That's prayer in a bowl.
Prayer in a bowl. I love it.
So honestly, what I think I do is I reconnect my clients to who they really are and move from that place of presence and mindfulness. I always say it's not about yes, of course, nourishment, the right foods for their constitution, eating mindfully, all that's so important. Eating mindfully. In fact, as you know, our teacher, Dr. Halpin, our mentor, always says how you eat is more important than what you eat.
Right.
But I really feel Ayurveda is a mind shifting of consciousness, and understanding that, okay, this is medicine for me. This is not medicine for me. And sometimes doing things that are not medicinal for us, like we said, 80-20, and understanding that.
Right. Exactly. I mean, I think as you were speaking, we could even say on a tantric level, the disease and the imbalance is also divinity. We have this way of separating, but often the way that I lose myself or go out of balance is how I also call out to God and come back.
Absolutely. Katie, as I'm talking to you, I'm rubbing my knees because I got diagnosed with osteoarthritis of my kneecap in June. I turned 52 this year. My mom is 82. She has osteoarthritis. I'm telling my doctor, no, this can't be. I'm 52. I'm fighting it, right? Boy, has it been here. Has it been a teacher and continues to teach me and school me in ways I've not been schooled before. So yes, that's part of health.
That's the humility, right? Yeah.
That's the humility of the human condition.
Yeah.
That's the humility, and this is a part of my journey of health.
Yeah. Yeah. The guru, the Kali, right? And I think a lot of times us in the Ayurveda community, we want to be healthy. We want to be blissful. We want to be comfortable, because health is super comfortable. When you're healthy, it feels so much better to be in a body, right?
Right.
And then you have the tantra of it all that says this earth walk is not necessarily meant to be comfortable. And there's the whole non-attachment and that realm of a Ramana Maharishi that was riddled with disease and yet awakened in the heart, or a Jesus Christ, etc. I find that to be really powerful medicine, to remember that I've struggled with chronic issues since I was in the womb. And it's been this ongoing journey, and I get teary-eyed because it's also how I created the Shakti school. That's so much bigger than me, as you know. And it's just radiant young and not so young women who are getting schooled in, thank you. I bow to your mother tradition. It's important for me to say this too, to our listeners. The reason that we leaned into Ayurveda is that our Ayurveda, for many of us, was burned. When I'm speaking of Sandhiya, and that India, despite colonialism, has been able to keep it alive, this good witchery, And I just feel so connected to you. And when you go to my lands of, I'm full on white girl, right? The Celts, the Druids, you will find the Ayurveda there. You will find the yantras there. We will find the medicines there. And maybe a good place we can end is I see this as a way to heal our sisterhood that has been broken and lost, global sisterhood and brotherhood, but we love our sisters. So maybe just ending on Ayurveda as mother medicine for the globe.
That's so poignant, Katie, because I truly believe that ancestral medicine was mother medicine for the globe.
That's it.
In fact, there's a workshop that I came across. It talked about the Celts and the Vedas.
Wow. I take this.
I'll send you, I'll find it. I think it's by Hindu University of America. I truly, and when I tell people, I say, we all lived Ayurvedically.
Yes.
Generations ago. We all did. It was a matriarchal, medicine. It was this is, in fact, I think about, wow, how would the world be if women, I wouldn't even say ran the world, because women don't have that concept of dominance, that feminine energy, or, I don't just mean women, but people who identify as women as well. But, and there's a move to rematriate the land, right? Ayurveda connects us, because my goal as a practitioner, and I know your goal as a practitioner, as a teacher also, Katie, is not to foist one way of thinking, right? It's like, I want this to open people's hearts and souls to reconnect with their lineage, their mother medicine. We all lived Ayurvedically. We would wake up with the sun, work on our land, eat what was local and seasonal, because that's all we had. Yeah. We can go to Ralph's and get like kiwis from New Zealand, right? So, and when we fell sick, it was grandmother's medicine from the backyard. And we lived in community. We lived with love, going back to our roots. And if Ayurveda can take us back there to our indigenous roots of how we lived many, many, many generations ago, I think that's the way forward. Because I truly believe how we lived before the conquerors and the conquerors and the colonists, I think how we lived was rooted in love and community and love of community. And that's what we need right now in this world more than anything else.
It's true. Yeah, I think if you keep following the psyche of all humans, you will find the same mother root and the same lineage of the archetypal world, of the dream world, of I think identity, it can be super powerful initially if people haven't connected to their lineage. Like for me to connect to my hillbilly roots and my wild Scotch Irish roots and to learn about that, a lot of trauma, honestly, and a lot of great warriorship. And it's been powerful to return to the energy of Christ, because I grew up as a snake handling little Southern Baptist. I mean, not really handling snakes, but metaphorically. And I think the next step along the journey is, once we've connected to that we can then begin as a next stage. Maybe we're starting to get ready for, I want to be a part of this, is that we can move from the identity that we've honored, and we need to honor it. We need to learn the shadow of it and the light. We move to dissolving our association with identity. That really is the next stage, because if we get too fixated on identity, that contracts the heart back down. And now you polarize deeper into your identity group, and that's the seed of war.
Absolutely. And this is where I lean into the Vedic wisdom that, I was perhaps born in Nazi Germany.
Exactly.
I was a Nazi in my prior life.
Maybe
I was somebody who committed genocide. Maybe my next life, I might be born in the Middle East. Maybe, again, so there's this aspect of oneness. And, this Vedic thought is, you're not your body, you're not your mind, you're not your senses. Now, that doesn't give us a ticket to spiritual bypass. At the same time, it is not for us to overly get attached to identity like you're talking about. Like, these are just labels.
Yeah.
Can we move past that? Can we move into our inner divinity so that from that place, recognize divinity within each and every being and operate from that space? I think that's the way forward. Absolutely. Losing identity, losing labels.
It's a state of consciousness, like when I'm with, like, I'm sure our listeners will see this and hear this, but when I'm with you, Sandhiya, or I'm with our teachers in Shakti school, or the women of Shakti school, or like, it's not like we're special. It just attracts a certain person that's a seeker, right? Of the heart. We call it smart plus heart. Mm-hmm. When I'm with you right now, your identity, this lilt of your Indian accent, this feminine timbre of your voice, the little bindi on your forehead, the peacocks that remind me of being in Kerala, like your Indianness is like a beautiful covering that I get to enjoy. And maybe my little Southern accent, and that's fun. You get to enjoy Katie Silcox being her little white girl hillbilly self in Virginia, and yet she knows about all this stuff, right? Like, it's like the icing on the cake, but the color of your skin or where you're from, when you live in the heart, that's the last thing I see about you, right? Like, it's your light.
That's right. I'm connecting. Touche, sister. I'm connecting to your heart.
Your light.
That's it. My heart is connecting to your heart. and we are presence embodied in this moment. And for listeners listening to the podcast, they are joining in the presence. And so we're going to have this beautiful presence of heart.
Friendship.
And friendship and light and connection.
Yeah.
Connection, I would like to mention two authors who
please
absolutely talk about this. One is John O'Donohue, the great Celtic mystic.
Love him. Yeah.
His book, Book of Blessings, is something I turn to often for prayer and contemplation. And Pema Chodron's book, which came to me during the pandemic, a dear friend gave it to me. I can't remember the name. I'll text it to you later. But
is it when things fall apart?
Things fall apart.
It's one of my favorites.
I turn to it again and again, and I love how, and that the chapter on try to live a day without labeling anything. What medicine that we need right now, especially.
Yeah, your presence in this podcast are the medicine that I needed today. It's amazing the way that the medicine is always available, right? If we have the heart and the eyes to see. Maybe as a closing question, we live in a time of great turmoil, dis-ease, disease, inflammation of the soul. I wonder if you could offer, we're going to imagine our listeners driving by a billboard, and you can give them a one-liner for this time as spiritual advice. What would you write on that billboard that millions would see?
Loka samastha sukhino bhavantu. Loka samastha sukhino bhavantu. May all beings be free and happy. And may my thoughts, words, and actions contribute to that freedom and joyfulness and happiness. And I am very much a part of that. So may I embrace and embody that in as much as I can. Doing our best. We are all doing our best. That is something I want us to always remember. We're doing our best.
Beautiful. So everyone, you can see why Sandhiya is one of our most beloved teachers. We love having you at the Shakti School. Sandhiya, you also have your own website. You offer consultations and classes. Can you let us know where we can find more about you?
You can find more about me at alchemyayurveda.com. Alchemy Ayurveda is my platform, but I'm more on Instagram and Facebook when I have offerings. So thank you for that, Katie. But I must let you know, you're my medicine for the week. This is my highlight for the week. Yes.
Wow.
Yes, I told my partner last night, like, it's a very big day. I have this interview with Katie and told him all about you. And yes, this is medicine. Anytime I'm given a platform to share my love for Ayurveda and share my love for people, I consider it a great blessing. So thank you so much. And thank you for making a beautiful receptacle that is called the Shakti School of Ayurveda. So you can bring in these beautiful beings together. And I'm so grateful to be a part of it. So thank you so much.
So many feelings, Sandhiya. I too, we're going to end the podcast with me and Sandhiya just gushing over each other. But that's what happens. You know, the Bible also speaks about when two or more are gathered in my name. And it doesn't mean, oh, just Jesus, right? It's an energy of love that when two or more are gathered. And I always say to my therapist, like, why is it so much easier with you? When I'm with you, I can do the energy practices. I can remember my soul. And she says, because we're together. And that is just really the essence of health. We live in such a lonely time, and I include myself in that. And to connect with you as a sister and a friend and a mentor and a wise woman, it's just been such a healing podcast. I think I knew that, I mean, I love you and I've spent a lot of time with you. So I know you're a firecracker and you were going to blow up the show with all the good vibes, but like, just going into it, like, we never know what we're going to find. And honestly, I am saying this for the first time in the history of Spirit Sessions. This might be my favorite episode ever. I seriously mean that. And I not that you have to rank them, but this is the best. So thank you.
That means the world to me, Katie, because I think same here, you know, because I think both of us brought our hearts.
Did.
And, you know, it wasn't much about the food choices and food combining and all that. And all that's great.
Sorry, listeners.
Great, but yeah, let's, you know, when we come from source, everything falls into place. So.
Right. So guys, if you want Sandhiya's top food list, you're going to have to follow her on Instagram or come join Shakti School. Today, we've just blasted you with something way more important. If you can bring an ounce of the love that we feel into your food, you're good to go. Sandhiya Ramaswamy, Queen Diva, thank you so much for being here. You've given me and the listeners such a blessing. And I'm just so glad you're a part of my life and the work.
Thank you so much, Katie. It was so joyful to be with you. And just if I may say something, you know, when we started Zoom calling and when I was in interviews, people would say, you know, you should look at the web camera, like, you know, over there. But I'm like, I'm not looking at the person. But they're like, no, but I'm like, F it. I've locked eyes with you. Okay? So this is sadhana too. This is presence too, you know, like, yeah, you know, who cares what the technology gurus say? I want to see you. I want to connect with you.
So maybe this episode would be called F it. I want to connect with you.
Do what your heart says. Much love to you, darling. Thank you so much. Much love to everyone listening and all the students and teachers at Shakti School. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Thank you.
A big special thanks to Kevin Carlisle of Goodbye Gemini, who wrote this beautiful podcast music, and to DJ Juan Pablo Jimenez in southern Spain for mixing it and making it magic.